good friend of mine. I still call him fairly new CEO of the Greater Houston Partnership, but also former CEO of Kinder Morgan, one of the leading midstream oil and gas companies. Steve retired out of Kinder Morgan, and he told me, and I hope this is not, I don't want to say anything privately, but he has basically taken this time in his life to give back to the greater Houston area. And that touched me to say, hey, look, he's dedicating these years in his career to give back to growing Houston, which has been so good to him. And I just think that's fantastic. So help me welcome good friend, Steve Kane.
Thank you. That was very good. Thank you so much, Chad. Great to be here. I can't tell quite the whole story that Secretary Wright can, but I remember we had some protesters show up in British Columbia at one of our employee events, and they were snowboarders against oil or something like that, right? And the interesting thing is their snowboards are all coated with polyurethane, and that's what helps them get down the mountain as fast as they do. So anyway, we're grateful to have all of them as customers, and grateful for everything that you all do and that we do in our region. So I've got a few things that I'm going to cover. I'm going to get to specifically the contributions of this region when it comes to oil and gas and petrochemicals. Okay, I'm going to talk first about our community, the Houston metropolitan area, and there are several points. We are winning here. We're growing. We're a global community. I think we're really the only global metro that's in the Texas Triangle. We do so much business overseas. We're a huge trade hub. We're a very diverse population. The whole world lives here. We have very strong demographics, and I'm going to contrast the Houston metropolitan area with other parts of the developed world, and we really stand apart, and we're aligned. And I'll just say, I don't have a separate slide on this, but when you look at the makeup of our political class here, people are working together to try to make this a better place. I quote our mayor all the time. He said, big cities have big problems. Good big cities acknowledge those problems and fix them. And that's the way we are really as a community. We work together to get big things done. Had a group of CEOs come to from town, talking to a CEO from out of town who were trying to recruit here, and they said, and they had been in all these different places, this is the only place where they've seen people come together to get things done, unlike any other place that they've ever lived or worked. So we live and work in a very, very special place. I'll give you some numbers around that. This is our GDP, and I'm focused on a particular area here. 21 to 23. So this is the period coming out of the pandemic. And this speaks to the resilience of our economy. We have a large private sector driven economy. We roll with changes all the time. Businesses are always making adjustments. One of the chief economist for one of the big banks was at an event of ours, and he said, all this crazy change that's happening right now, this is just another day at the office for people in Houston. We're dealing with commodity price cycles. We deal with all kinds of things. What this is showing you is how we came out of the last disruption. Coming out of the pandemic, our GDP grew 25% over that period, faster than any other metro. We tend to be the last in and the first out when there's disruption. So keep that in mind as we work our way through things currently. This is on population. This is a 10-year look. The population change on a percentage basis, the most populous metros in the country. We were second to Orlando. Orlando just made this list because they grew their way into it, and so that's why their growth rate is so high. But think about the big metros and look at where we stand, 20%, by far the largest of the big metros. And New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, the biggest three metros, actually losing population over that period. In 2024 alone, 200,000 people moved to the Houston metro. 200,000. That's like if just Lubbock moved here in a single year. I mean, it's extraordinary. So people are coming here. The other thing I would point out is, and I'll show this in the jobs number in a little bit, but look at it here too. A lot of the places that are growing the most, New York was kind of coming back from having lost some population, so it's not super surprising. That metro is about 3 times our size. But actually, I'll save this for when we get into the jobs. So here's the growth rate in jobs. 20 most populous metros, again, Orlando, because they grew their way in here, but we're right behind them at 2.5%. And look at where the jobs are growing. You know, we tend to apologize for our weather around here a little bit too much. I moved here from Nebraska. I love the summer. You know, I would take August in Houston above, you know, February in Omaha anytime. But look at the hot cities. Orlando's weather is almost identical to ours, right? In terms of cooling degree days, in terms of exposure to tropical storms, everything that we complain about here. The hottest cities are also the hottest in terms of growth and in terms of job growth, particularly. So we can stop apologizing for our weather and just embrace it. Overall migration. So Houston is a very young metro, and I'll get to that in a moment. Our growth comes from natural increase, which means births outnumbering deaths, and some of that is a function of our youth. We also grow as a result of people deciding to move here from other parts of our country and also from other countries. And so we were number one in growth from overall migration last year in 24 of the 20 most populous metros. So people are moving here, and think about this for a minute. Most people who are here came from someplace else. And most of them, unlike me, didn't come for the weather, and they didn't come for a social safety net because we don't really have one. They came here to find opportunity, to find work, and to build their future here, right? That's the story of probably most everybody in this room. And that creates a very special culture of a place, a unique culture to our place. People come here to succeed, right? And they think they're going to, and they often do. And that's a very different culture and a very different dynamic than what other major metros experience. Our foreign-born residents, as you'd expect, about 50% from Mexico, Central America, but our fastest growing demographic is actually Asian, and that makes just slightly over a quarter of our international immigration. The youngest major U.S. metro, if you blew this out to 100 metros, Salt Lake City and Fresno, California are a little bit younger, but when it comes to the big metros, we are the youngest. This is 25.7% are under the age of 18. One more really important and relevant statistic on this, over the last 5 years, Houston was the #1 metro in adding to our 0 to 18 population, 18 and under. We grew faster, and look at this. I mean, only 2 other cities really grew at all there, and the major metros lost population, aged out of that population at the 6-figure level in New York, Chicago, and LA. Why is this important? This is important because our schools are growing. Not every ISD is growing, but our schools are growing. Our school-age population is growing. Our future workforce is growing. This is something when we talk to companies in other parts of the world, we point to, because this is not true in the other major metros in the US. It's not true in the major metros in Europe. It's not true in the major metros in East Asia, right? We are growing our school-age population. That bodes very well for our future workforce. We will have additional workers coming into the workforce, aging into the workforce as time goes on. It also makes it extremely important that we get this right here, that we get education right here. Texas is about 1 in 11 people in the country. It's 1 in 9 of students. So that's a statement about Texas overall and our youth. Our future is being educated here. Our future will be employed here. This shows that this is a population chart. What you see on the columns on the left are age groups. At the very top is 85 plus. At the very bottom is 0 to 4. The green indicates where Houston has more people on a percentage basis in that age group than the nation as a whole. And the blue is where the nation as a whole has more. And so it's very, very clear on here. When you look at the population under 50, and particularly population under 20, Houston has a far greater percentage in those categories than the rest of the United States. And we have fewer, the rest of the United States has more older population, a higher percentage of older population. Again, I think demographics are destiny, and our destiny is bright because of our demographics. This is just a one-year look. Job gains in the 20 most populous metros again. On a percentage basis, 1.4. We're in the top 6. If you look over a longer period, we're typically in the top 2 or 3 on this calculation. So we are growing, and we are global. We're the #1 exporting metro. What this is stuff that we make here, and a lot of it is made right here, stuff that we make here, what we process, refine, manufacture, gets exported from this metro, this 10-county area, to other places in the world. A lot of it through our port, but some of it is going to other metros and being exported from there. We're #1. We make stuff here. That's $181 billion. It's bigger than the next 2 combined, and over 3x Chicago and Dallas. So just huge. We're bigger than the next 2 combined, and a lot of that is about the businesses that are represented in the room here today and about our port and our metro. Again, we are a global city. The exports, again, on the left there. 1 in 4 people in Houston is foreign-born. Almost 1/3 of our workforce is foreign-born. We speak over 140 languages here. Everybody's people are here. Everybody, the Indian community, the Vietnamese community, we've got everybody's people here. We've got their food. We've got the most diverse food scene, really, probably in the country, and it enriches our city. And it, again, I think makes us the only truly global city in the great state of Texas. We're home to 86 consulate offices. That is 3rd behind New York and LA. We're, I think, tied for 4th on the number of foreign banks that have operations here, tied with Miami for #4 on that. The main reason for people moving to Houston, work, 49%. So again, these are people coming here to make their future, to go to work, et cetera. We were the biggest and first in terms of back to office. Family is #2 at 1/4. So now I'm going to talk about energy. It's not just fuel, it is the fabric of modern life. And again, I can't say it as well as Secretary Wright, perhaps, but what I would say to my coworkers at Kinder Morgan, particularly when we were under fire and under gun for building the infrastructure that we're building, and we were being told we'd be out of business because hydrocarbons are going away, on and on and on. It was a little bit tough to be in the energy business for a while there. And I would point out that if you took the entirety of modern humanity, so a couple of 100,000 years, and you looked at how long it's been since life has been kind of modern and convenient and normal, the kind of life we're living today, it's at best 100 years. You take that and divide it, compress it into a single year. It's basically, I didn't do the arithmetic again this morning, but it comes out to about a half an hour where we've lived the kind of life or had the conveniences and had the opportunities that we have today. That's part of the point that he was making there. And so basically, 11:30 p.m. on December 31st is when things got good. And really, it's energy that keeps it going. It's energy that made that possible. It's the moment when our ability to make stuff happen and to make stuff exceeded what we could physically do or what we could do with the animals we could domesticate. It is really how civilization happened. It's because we learned how to harness energy. We made civilization possible. So I would say to my coworkers all the time, when you're at the neighborhood barbecue, they ask you, what do you do at Kinder Morgan? You say, I make civilization possible. You're welcome. What do you do? You all make civilization possible. You make civilization possible. Don't ever forget it, even if the rest of the world forgets it, okay? It's not just fuel. It's how we keep warm. It's how we keep the lights on. It's how we make stuff. It's the stuff that we make in our petrochemical sector. You know, you can look around this room. You can look at what you're wearing. You can look at what's in the car that you're driving. It's everything. It's mobility. It is power. It is heat. It is fertilizer. We couldn't support half the global population that we have. We would starve half the people if we didn't have fertilizer made from methane, natural gas, and made in facilities here. It's in medicine. It's in everything. It makes civilization possible. And we're the center of it. Over 5,000 energy firms, 20 Fortune 500 energy headquarters. We're number 3 in Fortune 500 firms. It includes not just our energy companies, also includes like Cisco Foods, HP Enterprise, Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. It includes others as well, but 20 of those are in the energy sector. And we're the 3rd highest concentration. We have about 26 Fortune 500 firms. I think Dallas is next at 21. New York and Chicago have us beat out. Over half of natural gas infrastructure is owned by companies that operate here. About half of the oil pipelines here. 95% of the U.S. ethylene capacity, which goes into the materials that we make here, 95% of that is the U.S. Gulf Coast. 50% of refining is U.S. Gulf Coast. 2.8 million barrels a day is in Houston refineries, 10 Houston refineries. I'm not sure if that includes Lyondell now or not, but Houston refineries, 2.8 million barrels a day, number 1 in the U.S. for trade and number 1 port. It fuels our growth. It pays for stuff. Okay, we are a big reason. We talked about this in Austin in the last session. The reason that the state of Texas is running a big surplus is because of you, right? A lot of that is generated in our metro. It's generated in West Texas too. It's generated from our industry. It pays for our schools. $27 billion of state taxes and royalties, almost $3 billion to our schools. Texas counties get $1 billion. We employ over almost 500,000 people in the energy sector around the state at an annual wage that's in the deep 6 figures. Those jobs also multiply. The jobs that we have in the energy sector support every job supports another 3 to 5 additional jobs in the economy, service providers, materials, manufacturers, construction, contractors, et cetera. And thousands work behind the scene, again, to make civilization possible here. At the partnership, we're also focused on the future, which is we got to meet the twin challenge and continue to meet the twin challenge. That is, we need more energy, we need more of it, and we need more kinds of it to meet the growing demand that we're going to see in our sector. And we also need to decarbonize. We're not going to get rid of hydrocarbons, but we need to continue to work on reducing emissions. And so that's a big part of our work at the Houston Energy Transition Initiative at the partnership. And I'll just point to one statistic on here. So we set out to make sure that we maintained our position as the energy capital of the world. Part of that is attracting the new firms, the new technology, and we have now over 300 clean tech and climate tech startups in Houston to help secure our position as the energy capital of the world for a long time to come. So the priorities, all of the above, we're going to need everything. We need to manage our carbon. We need to manage our power. We're going to need more power, and demand-side management is going to be part of how we meet that. We've got to continue to develop our talent and our workforce. We got 25,000 engineers enrolled at A&M, an hour and a half from downtown Houston. We're going to need plenty of Aggies and plenty of Longhorns and plenty of Rice and U of H grads to serve the future. And those startups are going to help us keep the lead in technology as well as the we don't have a national energy lab in Texas. Can you believe that? So we are working on establishing outposts for those labs here too, so that we can be at the forefront of technology. So working with the Economic Alliance of the Port, the Greater Houston Partnership, our Energy Transition Initiative, helping to keep us number 1. Thank you all very much.
Someone who's made it his mission to advocate for the industry behind hydrocarbons. Chet Thompson is President and CEO of the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers Association, AFPM. If you've driven a car or touched plastic, washed your hair today, hopefully all of you did that, AFPM has had a hand in it. Chet's not just a leader in the space, he's a heavyweight in Washington as well. Before joining AFPM in 2015, he spent over 2 decades practicing environmental law, both in private practice and at the EPA. Under his leadership, AFPM has become one of the most effective voices for industry, arming advocates like us with clear, compelling facts about the products that make modern life possible. The Economic Alliance is proud to call AFPM a partner in our federal advocacy work, and I know you'll walk away from Chet's talk better informed and maybe even a little fired up. So, Chet?
Thank you, Russell. He travels with me, people. That was a great introduction. I appreciate it. Chad, where are you? Thanks for having me. Great honor. Steve Hardak to follow. I'll do my best. Thank you, everybody. It's great to be here. This is my first time at this facility. It's awesome, and I did also a great tour of Hask yesterday. That's another great facility. So I've seen a lot of great facilities. I'm really proud to be a part of this, and it's also great to look out, Guy, and see a whole bunch of my members here, small companies you might have heard of. Certainly we're in Lyondell's facility, but Exxon and Valero and Chevron and Pemex, Cineos, all great members of mine. And for those who don't know AFPM, it's a trade association that's been around since 1902. It is our mission to advocate, be the eyes and ears and advocacy voices for this industry. We take great pride in doing it. Located in the swamps of D.C., but also certainly all around the country. We get up every day to advocate for your ability to do what you do, which is great things. So it's awesome to come here because, sometimes, we forget just how great you are when you're up in Washington. You have to get here, right here where it all happens. There's no place in the country that's more critical to the oil and gas and refined products, petrochemicals, than right where we are, right here in this neck of the woods, the Houston Ship Channel. So, I kind of resist saying it, and for some of my integrated members, I apologize, but as you guys know, upstream gets all the glory. They drive all the headlines. They get the TV shows, right? Dallas, more recently, Landman. By the way, I said to my colleague who's here, I said, man, wasn't Dallas a great show? And she's like, huh? So, and then, I guess if you remember Dallas, we guess are getting old. But they get all the glory, but what I like to tell folks is, it's the downstream, right? It's the downstream that gets things done. It's the downstream that turns things like natural gas liquids and crude into things that people can actually use every day, the diesel, gasoline, jet fuel, and everything that Steve mentioned, all the products that we make. So that's awesome to me. And so in our country today, there's 130 refineries, 250, give or take, petrochemical units scattered over about 31 states, but 65 of them are located in this part of Texas, right here we are. We have more than 3 million miles of pipeline that serve us in this country, but 500,000, give or take, are in the state of Texas. Pretty awesome. And think about this, for every job at a U.S. or a Texas refinery or a Texas petchem plant generates 52 other jobs. It's the largest multiplier of any other manufacturing sector in the country. That means, by my calculations, there's over 1 million Texans whose livelihoods depend on the downstream sector, and that's awesome. We contribute a mere $450 billion to GDP. We pay another $70 billion in taxes, which I like to remind people helps build roads and libraries and schools and all the infrastructure that folks take for granted. Also critical to our industry, I don't have to tell you folks, but I'm going to because I wrote it down, and that is the importance of ports generally, but the port of Houston in particular. You have enabled our ability to grow, to export. You have been a magnet for investment in facilities and innovation and certainly in jobs. And so it's awesome. And as I know you and all of the Texans, you know this, but Houston is number one. It has the best port, so I'm told over and over in all the country. But all jokes aside, but it's earned it, frankly. And a little factoid that I saw yesterday I thought was interesting, I certainly didn't know, is that Houston handles twice as many ship calls every year as the ports of LA Long Beach and New York, New Jersey combined. Twice as many. Pretty impressive. And certainly the cargo that's moving through the port is really important to us because half the value comes from energy. The combination of oil, gas, and refined products, petroleum products, it's awesome. 88% of everything that leaves this port is American energy. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this in this neck of the woods, but can you imagine how much it would be if we could do something about the Jones Act? Really? No Jones? Everyone loved the Jones Act? I like to remind our European friends of how important this port was when Russia invaded Ukraine and our ability to get needed energy to Europe and other parts of the world. Certainly this port is critical in getting ethane out of the country. You know, about a decade ago, we were exporting about 0 ethane. I think around earlier this year, before some snags in the federal government, we were exporting about 700,000 barrels a day, thanks to our friends at Enterprise Energy Transfer and INEOS. And we're working on those permits that are now needed for ethane, and I'm happy to say I think some progress has been made, and hopefully that will be resolved in the coming weeks. But ethane, as you know, is one of the few things that China really needs from us. So it's caught up in those Chinese tariff negotiations. The overwhelming good news is I think American energy in this economy here, in this port region, we're in a really good spot right now. It's really vibrant, and I think it's going to be good for a long time to come. I certainly hope it's going to be a long time, you know, well past my tenure at AFPM. And the reason is because of the products we make. And I'm not going to, well, I am going to belabor it throughout the speech, but again, we make the world a better place. We make modern life possible. That's why people want our products. But listen, you know, none of this happens by accident. A lot of this, you know, we are certainly as a country, and this region is blessed with natural resources, okay? That's a little bit lucky. But everything else is not luck. It's hard work. It's buildings like this. It's people like you. It's ingenuity. And a little bit of help here and there from the government. At least, you know, the Texas government is much more helpful than sometimes our federal government. But all that makes it possible. But let me tell you what really makes it possible, the 3 million women and men that are in this industry. That's what separates us. I talk to folks all over the country and the world. It's our workforce that is second to none. And what gets me excited every day when I do what I do, it's the people I represent, you guys, but the folks on the front line that actually are at the facilities 24/7, including when things like COVID happens. So certainly American energy, American petrochemicals, global game changers, right? I mean, if you stop back and think about what we've done, looked at global poverty rates, looked about how the standards of living has gone, look at lifespans right now, right? I mean, it's not even close, the values of our products versus any detriments of our products. And it's only going to increase. Do you know what current projections are for global population growth? Right? Any guesses? Well, I'm going to tell you. 2 billion people are supposed to be added to the planet by 2050. 2 billion people. This planet is going to have 10 billion people. The middle class is also growing. The middle class is expected in the next 5 years to grow to 5 billion people. 5 billion. And guess what they want? They want the things that we take for granted. They want health care. They want a quality of life. They want opportunities. They want plastic goods. They want durable goods. They want good jobs. And all of that is what we provide. There is no such thing, and I said this a lot to the prior administration, there's no such thing as an energy-deprived, prosperous country. Think about that. Energy-deprived, prosperous country. It's quite the opposite. We need what we do. We need energy in order for the middle class to grow and for populations to have a good life. That's why the OECD, they project by 2060, plastic consumption will triple. Triple. So if folks want to be optimistic about the future of this region, just look at that number, triple. That's because, again, we are essential to modern life, medicines, technology, clean water, housing. In fact, if you go to the United Nations, you know, they have about 17 sustainable goals in order for the world to prosper. Look at all of them. They all require fuel. They all require petrochemicals. They require plastics. They require infrastructure. We are at the heart of what's going to make the world a better place. Jobs, Steve mentioned jobs is incredible. We went back 15 years. 1.5 million people have moved to Houston in the last 15 years, and I bet you, this industry had a lot to do with it. We hope they don't bring all their politics with them, but we're glad, and it's only going to grow, and I think it's worth celebrating. Now, this will be the last official remarks I give where I talk about the prior administration, okay? But I do feel the need with this crowd to do it. a little bit. Buddy's probably heard this too much, but I'm going to make him endure it again. And that's because it is amazing when you look back about how they dealt with our industry and the headwinds they've created. They had, by their own admission, a whole-of-government campaign to accelerate the transition away from petrochemicals and refined products. On day one, energy projects were halted literally on day one. They supported legislation that was going to stop petrochemical industries from expanding, and they were going to stop the export of petrochemicals from this country. I mean, I don't even know how you can say that, right? Certainly not in this part of the world, but that is not hyperbole. That's what they were trying to do. They even made recycling a bad word, especially if you put advanced in front of it, right? Because advanced recycling of plastics meant more petrochemicals, which for them was a bad thing. So, they certainly, in my opinion, tried to stifle us as part of their long-term plans for dealing with us. So, in fact, these are another factoids that, that I'll share with you. By our account, the prior administration published 350,000 pages, 350,000 pages of new regulations aimed at manufacturing, right? 60 of those rules were deemed major, 60 of them. Those were rules that have an impact of at least $200 million impact on industry. So I worked 3 years with President Bush. We issued, I think on average, one major rule a year, and we thought that was something. One major rule, 60 of them. So, and I don't have to tell you that a lot of those rules were not aimed at making us more prosperous, okay? So that's it with that. But it's true, but the good news is, we persevered, we made it through to the other side, okay? I don't really care, or at least I think no matter what you think of President Trump, from a personality standpoint, the good news is he certainly supports our industry. His administration supports our industry, and they've made that clear from day one. Day one, they promised to do a whole number of things, and they did that. And they announced things like making sure U.S. manufacturing and energy dominance was a thing. They promised they were going to end the ban on internal combustion engine vehicles. They were going to lift the pause on LNG exports. And again, all that has happened. So just remember that the next time you read a tweet that makes you shake your head. I will also say to this crowd, because one of our goals over the last couple of years was to raise awareness around the bans of the internal combustion engine. So you probably know the prior administration adopted a rule that was going to make it so you couldn't buy federally, nationally, a new gas car in this country in 2032. And in the waning weeks of the prior administration, they approved California's outright ban on gas cars. So in 2035, you were not going to be able to buy a car, not only in California, but 12 states that follow California, which is 35% of the new car market, right? Families would not be able to buy cars that meet their budgets and their needs. We worked with then candidate Trump and then certainly President Trump, and I'm pleased to say that just last month, we went to the White House for a signing ceremony in which he revoked that California ban. So that is off the books. Not only is it, they use a procedure called the Congressional Review Act, and the beauty of that is not only is it gone, but it can never come back again. So they ban anything that is substantially similar. Yeah, so in any event, look, I think the next couple of years give us lots of opportunities. But I want you to hear this, because I say this everywhere I go, too. We should not confuse this moment when things are pretty good as an excuse to go backwards, to lower our standards, to become complacent, to in any way slow down our drive to be more sustainable. I believe it's quite the opposite. The American people, look, anytime we talk to them and we do focus groups all over the country, they understand what we bring, but they expect us to be good. They expect us to do our damnedest to do it in the least impactful way. And so we have to do that. We have to continue our drive to be the safest industries in all of America, in which, by the way, refining and petchem top 5 in all manufacturing sectors. We're doing a great job, and whenever you start your number with 0 point something, it's great. But we need to drive to 0. We can't do it. But I just want everyone, hopefully, to hear me. AFPM is advocating for us to continue our drive to do what we call the dual challenge. We need to produce the products that we know the world needs to thrive, and we need to do it in an ever more sustainable way. And we need to happen because, again, the world needs us, growing populations need us. To quote Secretary Wright, who, by the way, he's just as good in Washington as he is in that video. We've met with him multiple times. It's wonderful to finally speak to someone that has a clue what a petrochemical is, right? Or you know, how refined products come to be. But, you know, he talks about we need to be an energy addition, not subtraction. We need all of the above and all of the below. So I'm going to quickly tell you, I get asked how and what ways do I talk to policymakers about, you know, what kind of policies should drive us. And we haven't had an energy policy in this country in my life, and we really need one. So, you know, I'm encouraging Secretary Wright to put pen to paper, but some of the things we talk about are really simple, but I want to share them with you. One, we encourage policymakers, hear it really hard, to trust consumer choice. We need to have people to themselves to decide what products best meet their needs, what best meets their budgets. I can assure you, if you leave that to folks in Sacramento or folks in Washington, D.C., it doesn't work out. It never does. People are smart, and we need to trust them, and they need our products. We need policies that actually play to America's strengths. As I mentioned, our country is blessed. We have the advantage in resources, ingenuity, our workforce. Why in God's name would we ever want to give that away? It makes no sense. We should not give it up, and we need policies to make us stronger, not weaker. We need open markets and fair trade, right? Trade policies are critical to this region of the country. It's critical to our industry. If there's anywhere that I've butted heads with this current administration, it's been about tariffs, right? You know, we still import a lot of crude in this country to run through our refineries. We still send most of our refined products to Mexico. We don't need trade wars. It does not work. It only makes things more expensive for consumers, and eventually it's going to affect jobs that we talked about. And so that doesn't make me as popular as I'd like to be with some folks, but it's the truth, and we need to keep reminding folks. We need to embrace all of the above, as I said. Every objective forecast says we're going to need more energy, not less. We should not be eliminating anything. And finally, you know, we need permitting reform and regulatory certainty. And, you know, and I know a lot of people say that, but why? Because we know we need more infrastructure in this country. We need more roads, bridges, we need pipelines, and we need, you know, to keep this port to be state-of-the-art, and we need other ports. We need that. This won't happen without permitting reform. Has anyone tried to build anything recently? You know, it is, yeah, it's very hard. And, you know, this is the one thing you can get bipartisan support on, but like a lot of things in Washington, they never seem to get it done. We need to make it happen. AFPM, we're trying hard to get permitting done in the next year. And we also need to stop this ping pong that happens from administration to administration. There's no way to be able to, you know, run an enterprise than to have 4 years of this and then 4 years of that, and to keep swinging back and forth. It just doesn't work. So I'm happy to say that things are trending in the right direction. I'm happy to say I believe our industry is in a good place. We're driving to a good place. It's because of the good work of the Alliance and all of our colleagues are in this room. So again, I'd like to thank you, you know, for this opportunity. I'm going to end with something that I just feel compelled to say, and anyone who hears me speak knows I always say this, but now I'm going to say it to Kim's sons who are here, and that is, you know, the work that people do in this industry is noble. I tell all of our workforce, it is noble because the products we make are noble. The products we make the world better. Nobody who presents data can prove anything other than that. So thank you for what you do. Keep doing what you do, and we'll be here to help any way we can. I look forward to joining this stage in a little bit for the Q&A. Thank you so much.
Really pleased to introduce Kim Haas, who is Baytown Olefins, ExxonMobil Baytown Olefins plant manager. you heard, if you're not catching what's going on here, if I wasn't good enough with the theme this morning, so we had Steve talk about the greater Houston area and the impact of oil and gas on the greater Houston area. Chet talked kind of that macro, not only national but global impact of the oil and gas and petrochemical industry. And now we've invited Kim Haas to come out and talk about specifically ExxonMobil and what comes into that plant, what they make with that, and what that goes into. So Kim is a rock star in our industry. So Kim, come on up and let us hear what you have to say. Help us welcome Kim Haas from ExxonMobil.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here this morning. Before I dive into what Chad alluded to, the exciting things ExxonMobil is doing and what we're doing to innovate and reshape industry, I wanted to start with a quick story. Steve talked about people coming to Houston. I thought I would share where I came from and what brought me here today. I'm looking in the back. Can we go to the next slide, please? Steve, it wasn't just you. I'd fill the silence with some jokes, but I'm not one to have them at the top of my mind. Okay, there we go. Can you go to the next slide? Okay. Well, I grew up on a farm in rural Illinois, fifth-generation farmer, and I was one of 4 girls. Life on the farm meant that rain or shine, the chores came first. Whether it was feeding animals, repairing fences, or planting corn, the farm was not optional. It was essential. My family and I relied on it to live. Looking back, those early mornings and long days did not just teach me what hard work looked like. It taught me responsibility, resilience, and above all, purpose. And those values have quietly guided me throughout every step of my journey thus far. After high school, I joined the Army ROTC to help pay for college. And that path led me to serve as an engineer officer. At a time I went into active duty, I served at Fort Hood, Texas, and later in the Michigan National Guard. There I learned another important life lesson. Leaders exist to serve their people, not the other way around. And today, as we think about the future of energy, technology, and climate solutions, that lesson is more relevant than ever. The next generation of breakthroughs won't come from the top down. They'll come from building trust, empowering teams, listening to bold ideas, and creating space for innovation to thrive. That mindset is what brought me to ExxonMobil. It's what's kept me inspired throughout my 20-plus year career. From supply chain roles to manufacturing leadership across the U.S. Gulf Coast and Sarnia, Ontario, I've had the opportunity to lead and learn across the company. Since 2023, I've had the privilege of managing the Baytown Olefins plant, the largest steam cracking site in ExxonMobil's global network. From day one, I've seen the company evolve, challenge norms, and push boundaries, especially when it comes to solving the world's biggest energy and climate problems. I'm going to share a couple examples of what we're doing, but first, I wanted to tell you about a conversation that really stuck with me several years ago. And wherever Jim's sitting, his reference to the 50th year anniversary, what I'm about ready to tell, I did not know today was the 50th anniversary of Apollo. It does have a space reference. I attended an event that featured a Canadian astronaut, Chris Hadfield, as a keynote speaker several years ago. And what he said resonated deeply because it relates not just to space, but where we are right now as an industry. He described watching the 1969 moon landing as a 9-year-old boy and realizing even then that it wasn't destiny or luck that made that moment happen. It was ingenuity, curiosity, and most of all, people. People working together to achieve something that once seemed impossible. One of the most powerful things that he said was, "I wasn't destined to be an astronaut. I had to turn myself into one." Think about that. He wasn't destined to be an astronaut, but he had to turn himself into one. That idea really hit home for me. Because in many ways, our industry is facing its own moon landing moment. Although ExxonMobil has been, and some may call, a traditional oil and gas and petrochemical company for over a century, we are fully committed to the transition to a lower emission future. We are adapting, innovating, and yes, turning ourselves into astronauts. As mentioned earlier, I manage the Baytown Olefins plant. Here we take ethane, a natural gas liquid separated from natural gas, and prepare it to be transformed into one of the most essential materials of modern life, polyethylene. It all starts at the wellhead. Natural gas and crude oil are extracted from underground reservoirs. After extracting ethane at fractionation plants, we send it over to my plant in Baytown, where it undergoes a process with very high temperatures, otherwise known as steam cracking, to extract and separate to make ethylene. That ethylene is then carefully purified and piped to our Mont Belvieu facility, where it's polymerized in a reactor and turns into polyethylene. Small plastic pellets that serves as the foundation for countless products that many of you have already heard today that we use in everyday life, such as packaging to containers. It's a fascinating journey from molecules deep under the ground to materials that make modern world possible. So let's talk about plastic. You've heard Secretary Wright's comments about plastic, or what our industry has done. They've revolutionized our world. They've improved fuel efficiency, enabled modern medicine, keeping food and water fresh through long journeys, and making everything from smartphones to surgical gloves possible. Polyethylene is everything from plastic packaging wrap in the grocery store that keeps our produce fresh, the heavy-duty sacks for storage, and even the plastic used around those plastic water bottles that Coastal Ice back there provides our industry with to help get it home more conveniently. During the pandemic, plastic was essential, helping protect healthcare workers, save lives. So I think we can all agree plastic is pretty critical to everyday life. But plastic waste is a global challenge. Society must explore every solution to address the issue head-on. We believe that plastic has a value throughout their life cycle, including at the end of their life. We believe that plastic has, it's why we focus so much working with our customers to design products that can more easily be recycled. Many of the innovative plastics we make in Baytown use less material, are easier to recycle, while retaining the specific properties that make them so valuable. But what about plastic that are less easy to recycle? And that leads to one of the most exciting solutions we here at ExxonMobil are bringing forward. Right here in Baytown, we are operating one of North America's largest advanced recycling facilities. We've already processed more than 100 million pounds of plastic waste. turning hard-to-recycle plastic into raw materials needed to make valuable new products. Unlike traditional recycling, advanced recycling breaks down plastic waste down into its molecular building blocks. That means we can take a wider range of plastics, including ones traditional systems can't handle, and transform them into high-performance materials. It's a win for the environment, for our consumers, and for companies who are trying to deliver on their sustainability goals. So our plan, we've already put in place and have in operation 2 advanced recycling units here in Baytown that we're operating, and we're evaluating similar units throughout North America, Europe, and Asia. Our hope is to reach 1 billion pounds of annual capacity. That's the scale we're aiming for. And with smart policy, better infrastructure, and continued innovation, we believe and have the confidence that we can get there. Next up, Proxima. Think of it like this. What if you can take something as common as a gasoline molecule and turn it into a super material? One that's tougher than steel, lighter, corrosion resistant, and has less than half the carbon footprint of the traditional material used in cars, wind turbines, or buildings. That's exactly what Proxima does. It's powered by a Nobel Prize-winning chemistry. But what's really exciting is how practical this material is. We are already producing the liquid feedstock, and we simply add a catalyst, trigger a reaction, and create a solid resin with ultra-high durability. Sounds easy. Proxima is performance and sustainability all wrapped up into one. And it shows how we can rethink what's possible without compromise. EVs. You know what most people think when they hear of electric vehicles? Batteries and charging stations. But what about the material inside the batteries? Or the bumpers, the tires, or even the seatbelt buckle? At ExxonMobil, we are helping power the EV revolution from the inside out. Our greases and oils keep gearboxes lubricated. They also regulate battery temperature, preventing them from overheating. The Proxima material that I just mentioned, they're also used in EVs, creating battery cases that are lighter, yet strong. We're also turning low-value byproducts from refining into synthetic graphite, a key material for EV batteries. The result? Batteries that charge faster, last longer, and store even more energy. And we're getting into lithium production right here in the US, aiming to power 1 million EVs by 2030. In short, we're not just keeping up with the shift to electric, we're actually helping build it. And finally, I'm going to shift to a proposed Baytown Blue hydrogen project, which many of you may have already heard about. It's if it comes to fruition, it would be one of the largest low-carbon hydrogen and ammonia facilities in the world. And here's the concept. We make hydrogen by capturing CO2, storing it underground. That hydrogen will power our own operations, replacing natural gas in steam cracking furnaces and turbines, and it emits no CO2 when burned. But it's bigger than just Baytown. We would supply clean hydrogen and ammonia to our customers around the world, from industrial facilities in the US, to power generation in Asia, to fertilizer production in Europe. It is an entire ecosystem. Hydrogen, carbon capture, global partnerships, working together for a low-carbon future. So what's the big picture? From the farm in Illinois to a career in the Army, the leading innovation at one of the world's most sophisticated manufacturing sites, one thing has never changed, and Chet alluded to it in his comments. Progress doesn't happen by accident. It takes bold ideas, relentless execution, and an unwavering belief that the impossible is within our reach. Colonel Hatfield reminded us that becoming an astronaut wasn't destiny. It was a conscious act of transformation. And in many ways, our industry stands in that same moment of reinvention. We're not waiting for a pre-written future, we're creating it. At ExxonMobil, we know there's no single solution to energy and climate challenges that we face as a society. But by combining breakthrough technologies with real-world application, we're showing what's possible. Because the future that we want, the future that we're all here to build, won't come from waiting. It comes from action. So I am very proud to be part of this journey with everyone. Thank you.
Let me quickly introduce Thomas Brinsko, my good friend, CEO of the really nation's best industrial magazine, BIC Magazine. So Thomas, I'll turn it over to you real quick, but thank you.
Thank you, Chet.
And you can't, and I know Thomas will say it, but inside your programs, you've got a QR code where you can log on to Slido to fire a few questions at them.
Yeah, it's on page 2 of the program. Underneath the agenda, there's a Q&A QR code. That's a lot of Q's. Q&A QR code.
There you go.
But you can type in questions to ask our esteemed speakers today. Thank you for having us, Chet.
Very good.
I'll get things kicked off here first. Wrote down a couple questions myself as I was listening to everybody. Chad, I think I'm going to start with a question for you, sir. Steve laid out Houston's situation for us that we can be real proud of. You get to see things from a national point of view. With your national vantage point, I wonder if you could do a little comparison and contrast between a state like Texas that embraces energy and a state like California that doesn't seem to. I know they have a couple of refineries that have been announced to be shut down there this year. How is that balanced out? We know we've got this great federation in the United States. What's your observations there?
Wow. Pretty stark differences, certainly. I mean, this crowd knows what I'm about ready to say. I mean, there's no starker comparison. You have California, strong anti-fossil fuel, strong anti-refining policy bent, certainly. And what you have now is California has the highest refined product prices, the highest gasoline prices, the highest diesel prices, the highest electricity prices, the highest energy prices, and I believe the highest export rate of people. And then, of course, the opposite is true of Texas. Texas, as I pointed out, is people are coming here. People it's some of the lowest energy prices. People want to be here. This is the heart and soul of our industry. So, I mean, the comparison is dramatic.
So California obviously has their own gasoline blend that's a big challenge for them, with 20% of their production being shut down. They've got some proposed legislation. It may be too early for AFPM to even have an opinion on this, but they're talking about maybe ditching their California formula and trying to get a cadre of Western states in to get more of a Western blend, is what their proposed legislation has. Have you seen anything on that, or does AFPM have an opinion?
We might have an opinion. I mean, listen, what's happening in California, right? I mean, they're refining network has shrunk dramatically over the last couple of decades, as you guys know. 2 more refineries, one Phillips 66, LA, and then Valero Benicia have already announced closures for next year. I forgot the exact percentage, but it's probably about 20% of California's refined markets. They have to import gasoline into the state right now. They have their own gasoline blend that few can make, and we have no pipelines that get across the mountains to California. They've created an island for themselves. And, I think some of the industry called California's bluff. None of this is a surprise. On top of these things, they passed laws that limit the amount of profits that refiners in California can achieve. So they've made it the worst business environment as one could imagine, and it's only going to get worse. So they've seemed to have found some religion recently, at least verbally. They have said they're looking into ways to potentially reverse course, but whether it's too late. I mean, we're certainly happy, Thomas, that they're talking this way, and we hope they follow through, but I'll believe it when I see it. And, as far as creating a Western blend, we'll see, because, the neighboring states, rely on refined products made in California as well, and so they're not happy with what's happening. And listen, we're committed to environmental protection. California's, boutique fuels can probably be adjusted to be better for consumers.
Thank you, Chet. There's a question from the audience for Steve here that I like a lot. Steve, can you comment on the project pipeline of capital investment here in Houston, and is the trend growing? I was looking at the Wall Street Journal about the $2 trillion worth of manufacturing projects that have been announced, and I think there's another 2 or 3 trillion that have kind of been pledged by different, even foreign governments. How much of that are we going to see in Houston? All of it, I hope, but what are you seeing right now, and can you comment on the pipeline generally?
Yeah, so at the partnership, we track construction awards. So that's when it can include residential construction when there's a housing development, or it can be commercial construction, industrial construction, and even some public sector construction. So when contracts are awarded, that's when it's counted. And so last year, we were right at about $44 billion of construction awards. When we look year to date, we're running just a little bit behind that, but we're still high relative to, call it, a 6 or 7 year average. So we're still growing, we're still investing. The composition of it maybe has changed a little bit. I think that there are companies that are holding off on investment decisions until they see tariffs settle out. Some are holding off on hiring decisions, but others are going, full steam ahead. We have a lot of growth that's happening in energy, particularly in exports. We see a lot of growth coming in LNG exports, and a lot of that will be met in Texas and Louisiana. With local production or in-state production that gets piped to the coasts and then gets liquefied and then exported. As global demand grows, we think we're going to capture an increasing share of that in the U.S. The other big area is power demand. So power used to be something that grew at 0.5% or something a year. Now with the introduction of artificial intelligence, the need for data centers, that demand is expected to grow up fairly dramatically. I think CenterPoint's here today. I mean, CenterPoint has said their estimate for the Houston Metro is 50% increase in power demand between now and 2031. Think about that. I mean, we are a huge consuming metro already, and that's a combination of data centers is a big chunk of that, but then also behind that is industrial capacity that's growing as we onshore more here, and we're seeing that. The flip side of people holding off on some of those investment decisions is people from around the world are coming to the Houston Metro to onshore their manufacturing facilities here. So I think it was about a quarter was related to that, another 15% or so related to just our growing population and residential demand compounding over that period. Just 2% a year compounded over that 6-year period can mean a lot. And then there's a little bit of crypto in there and some other things. So we are still growing and investing, a little bit of a pause on some things because of tariff uncertainty, but still pretty dramatic growth here.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Kim, I really enjoyed you sharing a little bit of your personal origin story. I was thinking, if you took a Venn diagram of military people and of industry people and folks who grew up on farms, that's probably a pretty small little percentage right there. And your comments on servant leadership struck with me. You've been a lifer at Exxon. You started as an intern there, correct?
Yes, I did.
What was it about, I thought about this, the quote from the astronaut that you turned yourself into one. I'm an Exxon alumni myself. I started at Exxon out of school before I got into my family business. What was it about Exxon that really sealed the deal for you to decide that that's where you wanted to be and to grow your leadership and impact for the world there?
Well, I did have a prior life before coming to ExxonMobil, but at this point, I certainly have spent quite a bit of my career with the company. I interned with the company between my 2 years of grad school, and my internship, I would say, certainly, as you mentioned, sealed the deal for where I wanted to continue to grow. And it was, a reason for that is it brought everything together that shaped who I am, from resilience and teamwork that I was taught on the farm to the servant leadership in the military. But what really stood out for me was seeing how ExxonMobil not only operates at the heart of global energy, but how it leads in bringing forward innovative solutions that help power modern living. And so that experience over 20 years ago sealed it for me, made it very clear for me that this is the place where I wanted to grow and contribute.
Thanks. So, Chet, Kim is crushing some plastic waste out there in Baytown, and we've got, you mentioned a forecast that we're going to triple the amount of, I've made a note there, triple the amount of plastic that we produce or will need in the world by 2060. I understand that you and AFPM are on a UN plastic waste negotiation kind of thing right now. What is the UN doing about plastic waste, and what do you hope that they would do as your influence with AFPM and your voice bringing to the table?
Well, several years ago, the United Nations announced that they were going to try to reach a global agreement to address plastic waste in the environment. And so that has, over the last couple of years, the United Nations, along with a lot of stakeholders, led through a lot of leadership through Exxon, but a lot of our members, Lyondell, BASF, to be sure, AFPM has been there. And, the objective within industry is to make sure that we do reach a good agreement. We think it's important to keep plastic waste out of the environment. We're united around that, and we're trying to drive us towards a more circular economy. And so the next round of negotiations are happening in a few weeks. The goal was to get this agreement signed at the end of last year, and it was unsuccessful, and it was a pretty concerning agreement for lots of folks who haven't been following it. In the petrochemical space, you should, because there are a lot of countries and stakeholders who believe the best way to deal with plastic waste is to prevent plastic production. So the agreement at one point last year had production limitations, a list of chemicals that shouldn't be allowed to be used in plastics, and of course that was unacceptable to us as an industry. We think we're heading now in the right direction, that we can keep the agreement focused, and we're going to find out in a couple weeks. Now, and we have convinced the Trump administration to send representatives to this agreement, because this is going to happen whether the U.S. is a part of it or not. And frankly, we need to make sure the U.S. is represented and our manufacturing sector is not disadvantaged.
Thank you, Chet. There's a question from the audience here for Ms. Haas. When will Exxon make the decision on their blue hydrogen plant? And does the recently passed Big Beautiful Bill going to affect this project?
That is a question that I get very frequently. We are currently driving towards a final investment decision late this year, early next year. And in terms of the Big Beautiful Bill, it is certainly one that we are working through and evaluating to kind of confirm our understanding of the benefits that would support and inform the decision around the final investment decision for this project. So more to come, I would say, on that, in that space.
Thank you. And for me personally, I'd never heard, I'm a little embarrassed, I'd never heard of your Proxima product before. As a marketing guy, I noticed it had 2 X's in the word, like Exxon does, so it must be a pretty important product for these guys. So you've acquired this chemistry 2 years ago. Where is this manufactured and how broadly is it used right now?
Well, yes, we bought the technology. We've actually brought all of the assets here in Baytown.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned, the material, we're looking to use it in EV battery cases.
Is it being used right now, or is this still?
We're still trying to enter the market,
Okay.
I would say, in all of the applications. We're still, working, partnering with customers to identify what applications this could serve good in. Another example that we are trying to apply it in is a product, rebar, in construction material. The machine shop that we are building over off of Decker Drive has Proxima material that we've used to build that building.
It just reminds me of like Teflon being introduced or something. It seems like such a miracle product. Good luck with that. Absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you have a cost per ton estimate, like compared to steel?
The top of my head.
The other, we were asking numbers. Well, I hesitated to ask, but I'll go ahead and embarrass myself and ask it now. When you acquired it in 2022, is that public information on how much Exxon paid for the technology?
I am unaware.
Well, so don't tell me, you'd have to kill me. Okay, all right. Hey, Steve, I wanted to ask you about more local governments here. Can you tell us about the role that they play, whether it's city by city or on the Harris County level, in fostering this healthy, competitive environment we have for the community? It's not just the businesses that are represented here in the room, but it's certainly our leadership here that you deal with. What role do they play in that?
Yeah, I will discuss it at kind of 2 levels. You know, our elected officials, and I didn't spend a lot of time previously with our elected officials in the Houston region specifically, but everybody I've talked to and everybody I've met is working hard for the public, and they're working hard to make this a prosperous place, and they're generally working together. And I said at the beginning of my remarks that one of the things that stands out about our community is that we're generally pretty aligned. I mean, people are trying to get the big things done, and they're trying to do the right things, and they're trying to keep us growing and prospering and providing all the benefits that our industry does in terms of taxes and everything else, so that public services can be adequate and we can build our infrastructure and fix our streets and all of that. I think we are blessed to have the mayor that we have, who is in a blue city like Houston. He's a Democrat, but he is about public safety. He's about fixing the streets, about picking up the trash, about eliminating homelessness. We've gone a long way in that regard already, but kind of finishing the job, making sure no one has to sleep on the street while they're waiting for housing. Things like that that are really leading, and has a good working relationship, and I think this shows up in the success that our Metro has had in the last legislative session, has a good relationship with our red state leadership. I mean, that's, if you look at the picture for city politics in big cities around the country, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that, I think. The second level I would mention, and it goes back to what Chad does and what a lot of other organizations in Houston, like the Partnership and the Alliance for the Port of Houston and others, there are dozens and dozens of economic development organizations in our metro. And we all try to get together at least monthly, generally at the Greater Houston Partnership Office, but oftentimes out in the metro, in other parts of the region, to work together on economic development prospects. We often, when something comes into the governor's office, someone's interested in Texas, and it goes out to all of the cities, we work together here to provide a single response to the request for information so that we show the whole offering that the city has, or that the metropolitan area has for that. So whether it's at the elected level or whether it's organizations like Chad's and mine working together to try to win for our region, I think we work together very well here. And I think that's a point of distinction for us.
So encouraging, so encouraging. Thank you for the work that you and Chad both do. It's encouraging to hear about the local governments and how it just doesn't get any better. Chet, you're working on more of a national level, and certainly Trump has put in great guys like Mr. Wright as Secretary of Energy. You've spent time as an environmental lawyer, as a deputy counsel for the EPA. We've got a lot of lifelong bureaucrats that are embedded in our government. How is it dealing with those people, and is new, fresh leadership going to be able to lead them in a direction that's beneficial for our country?
You're supposed to give us softballs, and you haven't. I apologize that he asked you those questions. No, listen, it's first things, as far as some of the, career government people, there's the words I'm looking for. There's some great people in the government. There's some really talented people at the Department of Energy, at EPA, there really are. Right now in our town, it's really dramatic. Everyone's trying to figure out DOGE and what it means. And literally, there are thousands of people who have been terminated. And so some of the concerns right now is to figure out who's left and who's going to do some of the work we need to get done. And I mean, that's real. If you look at EPA, they've cut their staff by 25%. It's a real number. Department of Energy. So, we need this to shake out a little bit. It's definitely created turmoil in the Washington area. I mean, these are, people who are part of the community, and it's been a bit of upheaval. But the good news for our sector is like you said, we have Secretary Wright, who's fantastic, Secretary Burgum in Department of Interior. He also knows our industry fairly well, and he's been great. So, but I think a lot of times what happens in Washington is folks don't understand what we do and how we do it, and we have to take some time to educate them. And so I'm optimistic, but there is a bit of upheaval right now, and we have to see how it shakes out.
Thank you. Hey, there's a question here, as probably good for all three of our panelists. As we look to 2026 and beyond, what's one trend or shift that you are most excited about for the energy or the oil and gas petrochemical space?
I'll say power is a really big deal. I mean,
Power.
I mean, it has been a long time since the energy industry has been at the center of something that is an economic imperative, like artificial intelligence. It's an economic imperative for some of the biggest companies on the planet to get that right. Everybody is racing. And it's also a national security imperative. And we have to win it. We have to win it. In the same way we had to be the first to get an atomic bomb. We have to be the first to master this. The difference between that taking place in the United States of America versus taking place in a totalitarian regime is really an existential question for us. So we have to win, and to win that, we need to win in power. And that means more power plants, that means more power infrastructure. The people that build generation are here. The people that build the transmission and distribution lines are here. We can do that faster and better in Texas than you can do it anyplace else. The people who service all those lines and install that equipment, like Quanta Services, they're headquartered here. We've got to win here, and I think the winners are in Houston. And I think this is an opportunity for us to be a part of a big story, biggest story of my career, and it's happening right now. And energy's right in the middle of it. Not since the Arab oil embargo have we been this much at the center of things.
Wow. Thank you, Steve. Anybody else?
I'll go ahead. I mean, one thing that excites me is, a number of years ago, what we were talking about in terms of how do we solve the problem that we have is, traditional oil and gas needs to go away, and we need to find alternatives such as solar and wind. More of the conversation today is there's not a silver bullet. We need multiple solutions. And what excites me is the amount of innovation that I see happening within our industry. For example, I just mentioned a whole list earlier in my speech of what ExxonMobil is doing, but I see it across our industry. Just as recently, you talked about power. I learned yesterday about this geothermal power technology that a company has brought forward. That's really excites me because that could help, again, be another solution to help with the power challenge that we've got or we're facing. And so it's just the amount of innovation that I see occurring within the industry.
And the
looking at
geothermal ties into the upstream oil and gas
Yes.
because it involves drilling and pushing
That's right.
downstream. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty cool stuff.
I mean, I would add through my DC lens is, you know, some of the biggest obstacles we hear from our membership has just been the regulatory uncertainty, the energy agenda, and maybe we've gotten reconciliation behind us now. We've gotten some of the big things behind us, and now we're going to have hopefully a year in which we can make further progress and, you know, and continue to do what we're going to do. And the other thing I will say is I'm really excited to see how advanced recycling plays out over the next, you know, year or so, because that's really, really big on the petrochemical side. It's really big driving us to a circular economy. We have an administration now, I think, that's going to be willing to embrace that technology and have some regulatory certainty around it. So that's really exciting.
Well, we've got a lot to be thankful for and a lot to look forward to. And let's all give our speakers one more last round of applause. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's get one picture on. Chad, would you come on stage? Let's get a picture together before our speakers go a lot of different directions.
Y'all can hang right here. We'll get a picture in just a second. So we are dueling with the State of the County event that happens across the Houston Ship Channel in about 30 or 45 minutes. So we're gonna wrap that up. But hey, one more round of applause for our speakers. Wow, right? I think we're really blessed to have this panel and this expertise and this message really kind of leading our industry. So I really appreciate them. I do want to say again, take time to visit our booths after we conclude here. We've got some great booths, everything from the manufacturing to the transport of these great products that we made, all kinds of good service and suppliers. So I did like the shout out to Coastal Ice that Kim gave. That was really nice. So say hi to the booths and take a look at what they've got there. I do want to also say thank you to our real key partners like AFPM, like ACC, the American Chemistry Council, like Hector and the TCC. Thank you so much for being here today, Hector. And even ECMA, our local, basically, association, and Mary Jane Mudd, who chairs that for us or runs that organization. So we've got great partnership here, so really appreciate everybody working together. I always have to say this, if you have no clue who we are, the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region is the economic development corporation that serves the Houston Ship Channel region, right? It's our mission to grow the economy, and we do that by making this region the place to do business, right? Working in partnership with all of those companies and organizations like you're seeing here today. But that's our sole mission. We support it with policy work up in DC and in Austin. We support it with infrastructure work. We support it with workforce development work. And it's the members of this organization that drive that train and, frankly, push that football down the field, right? I'm surprised that none of our other speakers really, especially Thomas with the LSU helmet. I got no other comments from all of these colleges. I figured Thomas with all of his national championships at LSU. So anyway, thank y'all so much for being here today. Put on your calendars September 18th. Our Gulf Coast Industry Forum happens right across the street. We begin that day here with a student breakfast, and we put the students with all of these plant and site managers. It's a fantastic event, and we will spend all day across the street talking about the future of this industry in the Port of Houston. So again, thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you to Bowler for sponsoring this and San Jacinto College for hosting this. Appreciate it, y'all. Thank y'all.